This is a little truth bomb that might sting, especially if you're a founder. You are probably not selling what you think you're selling. Welcome to episode 3 of my mini-series, New Rules for Building Cult Brands, Why Your Product Isn't a Product. And I thought we'll do something a little bit different today, so you're gonna get ready with me while I talk to you about why your product isn't a product. I have my little mirror down here, so if I'm looking down, because I'm looking at the mirror. So I know that your product is great. You're obsessed with the formula, you love the packaging. It took you ages to get all of the tones and colors of everything perfect, and now you've got this perfect little thing that you're selling. But none of that actually matters unless the person on the other side of the table, the person who is buying, actually feels something when they're buying or using your product. Because for a customer today, a product isn't just a product, it's a way to express themselves and a way to communicate to the world something about themselves. If you are building a brand or investing in one and you still think that the product is the main offer, this episode is your reality check. Let's talk about what it is you are actually selling and how to build a brand people will irrationally love. First of all, your product is just the access point to the world that your brand should be building. It's like a ticket to step into the world of your brand. The brands that really stick in your head and your heart, they're the ones that wrap the product in meaning. So they're not just selling you something you can use, they're selling you something you can feel and something you can identify with. So let's break this down with some real world examples. First up, Ghia. Ghia didn't just enter the non-alc space. They created the entire mood, from the art direction to the bottle design, even the playlist on their website. Ghia makes you feel like you stepped into a Mediterranean dreamscape where the time slows down and overstimulation isn't the goal. And every touch point reinforces the point of view that you don't need alcohol to feel elevated. What you need is intention and good company. So the product is good, sure, but it's not the product that you're buying when you're buying from Ghia. The real draw is how it positions you as the customer when you are the consumer of Ghia. It gives you an ideology you can relate to, and you say, you know what? Yes, I actually also agree with this statement. So when you buy Ghia, you're not just looking for a non-alcoholic beverage, but you're looking for something that you can communicate to the world what your own value beliefs are. It says that, yes, I am someone who cares about aesthetics, and I also care about my body, and I care about being present with the people I love. And in the modern world, this is exactly the type of social currency every brand needs. Next up, Ceremonia. Ceremonia could have been beauty with Latin roots and called it a day and be happy with it. But they didn't. They leaned into storytelling and they leaned into representation. And their founder, she doesn't just sell products, she tells you why it matters. The ingredients are deeply tied to Latin America, the rituals that are rooted in tradition, and their campaigns don't look like every other D2C brand. They feel like a homecoming for so many customers out there. And for a demographic that historically hasn't been centered in beauty, Ceremonia tells them, hey, this is the space for you, you belong here. And that's not just branding, like this is the deep emotional connection that brands can be creating with their customers. Or next, let's look at Studs. Studs could have been a Claire's 2.0, just with some updated visuals, new aesthetic packaging, and done. But instead they chose to build something bigger. A brand that reframed piercing not as a teenage rebellion, but as a self-expression for grown adults. Their earscape language turns product selection into a curation process. They've built a brand where you don't just buy earrings, you buy into the whole vibe. And it's yet another way for you to express yourself and communicate to the world your identity and things that you care about. Oh yes, it's fun, it's playful, it's expressive, and their success is no accident. The emotional connection with their customers had been engineered from the start. In all of the cases we just talked about, the product is just the entry point, but it's the emotional story and the emotional resonance that's really the offer of the brand. And that's what you're really selling. So let's pause for a quick gut check. Because if you're watching this and you're thinking, uh-oh, I think I might be selling just the product. What shall I do with it? Let's unpack that. So here are a few of the red flags that I see very often with early stage founders. First is your messaging leads with functionality. And that means what are the features of your product, not what it does for the customer or what it means for the customer. Or your SKUs feel like an isolated moment and not a part of a bigger narrative. Or maybe you have a beautifully designed brand, but zero emotional resonance behind it. Like no one can actually tell what it is that your brand stands for. Or your customers can explain what your product does, but they couldn't really answer the question, how does the product make them feel? And unfortunately, here is the hard truth. If a competitor with better funding can replicate your product, simulate your offering and steal your audience, then your brand was never defensible to begin with. And this is why the brand experience versus the product features is not just a nice to have conversation. It's a strategic discussion to be had at the very beginning of starting your brand. Let's see how you can shift your thinking and what it is you're actually selling. So let's flip the lens for a second. You're not selling snacks or soap or makeup or shoes. What you're selling is a shift in identity, a way to communicate who you are to the world, and maybe a belief that your customer wants to embody. So let me show you some of the examples of brands that do that well. Chamberlain Coffee. Well, yes, you will say, oh, Emma was famous before she started the brand. Yes, she was. But the reason Chamberlain Coffee works is because it evolved beyond Emma herself. What the brand really sells is the morning that feels slow, cozy, unbothered. Like, it's a whole type of lifestyle that so many people aspire to. It's the whole aesthetic of, I journal before I turn on my phone, like, even if you don't, but you get what I'm trying to say. The colors are nostalgic, the merch is ironic. And if you look at their socials, it doesn't scream marketing, it feels relatable and it feels like something your friend would post. In a category dominated by high performance energy, Chamberlain Coffee created a new type of coffee experience. You can call it cozy cool. And that's what they're selling. Or OffHours. What I love about that brand is that it's not another athleisure brand with like a loungewear line, but they embodied the whole idea of unapologetically not doing things. Their products are intentionally oversized, they're padded, like they're super cozy. And they've built the whole brand around the idea that in this world where hustle culture is so celebrated, you actually deserve to slow down and rest. And their messaging, it's very gentle, but it's confident. It's a countercultural statement against hustle culture and burnout. Or a third example, Maison Kitsuné. Kitsuné is one of those brands where I feel like they are the kind of, if you know brand. Like, it's a clothing brand, yes, but it's also a cafe, it's a music studio, it's a whole brand universe. And I talked about this in my other video, why brands today need to behave like a media company. You can check it out in the playlist. But going back to Maison Kitsuné, it's almost like a global subculture for the people that really care about nuance. It's the kind of cool that doesn't try too hard. Like the Fox logo, iconic. Like, it's just so fun and cool and unbothered. I love it. Their in-store playlists, immaculate. So they has built an ecosystem that makes you feel like you're entering almost like a members-only club. When you're buying a Kitsuné sweatshirt, it's not just about getting another sweatshirt, it's about buying access into a taste universe. So these brands have built something that most people overlook, an emotional contract, feeling that you can't quite put into words, but you definitely relate to. And that's the power of consumer brand storytelling. And that's the difference between, oh, I like this product, and oh, this brand really gets me. So let's make all of this actionable. Are you building a world for your brand? And if not, what are the steps you can take to change that? All right, so it's time to put your brand through a test. So here's a quick checklist to see if you are selling more than just a product. Does your customer talk about your brand in emotional terms? Could someone describe your world or your brand world, not just your products? Do your products reinforce a bigger belief system or a value identity? Is there a consistent mood, voice, and experience across everything that you do? And most importantly, if someone were to launch the same exact product, could they recreate your edge? So if you are nodding along to these questions, amazing, that's great. But if you feel like there's a little bit of homework to do, you can check out the description box down below, where you can get a free downloadable resource with all of the main points we discussed in this video. So you can always go back and reference everything that we talked about today. Because my goal, honestly, is just to help as many founders as I can and create a real supportive community around founders and operators of cult consumer brands. So let's wrap up everything we have talked about today. Your product is important, of course, but your whole brand isn't about the product. Your product is just the access point, an invitation into the world your brand should be building. It's a story that someone wants to belong to. And if you are serious about building a brand that people love, not just buy from. Your job is to create something emotionally resonant, a world, a belief, a value system. That is the secret sauce behind what makes a cult consumer brand. So that's what great founders are doing and what investors who win in backing consumer brands are looking for. And next week, we're getting even more tactical. We will be diving into brand intimacy. What that means, how to build it, why it's important, and why sometimes going deeper is much better than going wider. But for now, I'll leave you with this. What does your brand actually make people feel? So drop in the comments what your brand is doing to create an emotional connection with your brands. I would love to know and see examples. And please subscribe to Venture Muse Club for weekly updates on how to build a cult consumer brands. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss next week's video. And next week, I will be dropping episode 2 of Voices of Venture Muse Club podcast. And I am talking to Gaston Matani, who is a head of member engagement at the Mandala Club here in Singapore. And we'll be unpacking a very important pillar of building a cult consumer brand, community. This episode I am super excited about. It's full with tactical advice on how to build a community, how to get your customers engaged, how much resources do you actually need for it, because one of the most common excuses you hear from founders is, I don't have the money, I don't have the time. So Gaston goes into giving, he doesn't gatekeep, he drops the names of the platforms he is using, he's giving advice, real tactical, applicable, step-by-step frameworks on how to build the community for your brand. So if you are someone who either a founder or operator of a consumer brand and you want to build a community but you don't quite know how to go about it, or you have a community but you want to make it better and stronger, this is not the episode for you to miss. You really, really want to listen to it. So please subscribe so you don't miss it, and I will see you then.